Right. Hello and welcome. I'm delighted to be joined on today's podcast by Laois Senior Football Manager Mike Quirke, who, like Laois Today, is a proud brand ambassador for Joe Mallon Motors. Thanks for joining us, Mike, and I hope all is well in your part of the world. I suppose over the last couple of months, if we were to do an interview, there wouldn't have been a whole lot to talk about. We were in somewhat of a vacuum. But at least now, you know, you're going to be back on the 19th of April, I think, and games will start in May at some stage. It's as good as it has been in a long time for an inter-county manager.
It's great. Yeah, I think the announcement of government last week has given us a bit of something that we haven't had for a long time, which is a little bit of clarity and a bit of certainty about when we will get back in the field. And it's just brilliant. You know, it seems like that light at the end of the tunnel is getting a bit bigger for all of us, and we can see an insight now to it.
Yeah. What is the current status of the Laois panel?
It's like everybody else in the country, I suppose, trying to keep ourselves sane and fellas exercising and doing their individual work as best they can. And we've had fellas who've bought gym equipment for their house and their garage and lifting weights and doing their running and doing everything they can. But you know, it's as it was. We've done nothing, obviously, collectively since we were shut down, and fellas are absolutely bursting to get back on the field on the 19th or 20th or whenever that can be, and just get back into being a group and being used to having people around us again, which I think we're all starved of, really, you know.
And like there is you are working with a panel, like there's a group of 30, 40 guys or whatever who are part of the Laois Senior Football Panel, even though they're not able to gather collectively.
Yeah, we've 34, maybe 30. I'm trying to think now, is it 33 or 34, 30, somewhere around that kind of a number anyway, Stephen. Yeah. And all those guys have been working with Tom, you know, have their individual specific programs that they've been working on the last couple of months. And some guys just needed to get a bit stronger, some guys needed to get a bit fitter, some guys needed to do whatever. And they're all been, you know, working on those kind of things. And in one sense, I suppose it's been a great period for them as well, because you never get this chance in it with the GA calendar the way it is, that if you have specific things that you really need to work on physically, now obviously you can't do a whole pile of ball or skill work, but from a physical point of view, they've really had a great time to just be able to focus on those areas without kind of the distractions of having to go training with the county or having to go with your club or having to go anywhere else. While I'm sure they'd love to do those things, it's been a period where fellas have been able to kind of narrow in on physical kind of deficiencies maybe, and hopefully we'll see the benefit of that moving forward.
And have you been able to monitor that fairly well, in the sense that you're able to see guys making improvements? Yeah,
like Tom is on top of all the testing stuff, so you have a start point and an end point, and in terms of the times that fellas are running their whatever distances they have to run in terms of the weights that they're lifting. So like the thing with the physical side of things, Stephen, it's very easy to quantify, it's very easy to measure. I mean, it's the other stuff on the field, your decision making and all that is the thing that's a little bit more subjective and harder to improve. Whereas if you start off lifting 20 kgs and 3 months later you're lifting 70, well, there's a very obvious progression, and you know that people are putting in the time, and the weights and the conditioning is about just being dedicated to that and the grind of it. And to be fair, like, we've had an unbelievable buy-in from fellas who've really just kind of put in a massive effort again, because I suppose it's been great. Like, they've had nothing else to do in one sense, so it's been an easy sell.
Yeah, and I saw you in an interview with News Talk, and you were saying that you offered the lads sort of time off or take a break, and no interest in taking time off.
Yeah, I suppose I was just saying mentally more than anything else, you know, whatever. Well, physically you'd keep going physically, but mentally we just thought it was getting very frustrating, and it was getting very hard to stay motivated, you know, when you don't have an end in sight and you don't know when you are going to get back in the field. I wanted to shut it down. I wanted to just shut it down for a week or two and give fellas a break, and they came back and were adamant that no, they wanted to keep going because they saw the sessions and the progressions that they were making, and they felt it was just a really positive kind of a thing for them. It was a focal point for them during the week, that they knew they were able to get out and get their runs in and report their times and different things, and they just wanted to keep it going. So no, we might take a little break, you know, next week or whatever, to make sure fellas are nice and fresh by the time we get them back on the field. But in general, no, they were just mad to to keep going and give themselves something positive to focus on, I suppose.
Have you noticed anything? Obviously, when you're dealing with a panel of inter-county players, they're going to be fairly young. So there's going to be some of them in college, working, maybe some living at home with parents and that. Have you noticed sort of any sort of increasing frustration over just how difficult it has been?
Yeah, I mean, there's frustration there, absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, it's not probably not alone to the panel. Like, that's probably, you know, I mean, the whole population is feeling that, you know, that kind of frustration. Like, we've got guys now that will be sitting exams in May. There's guys on internships. There's guys, you know, working from home. There's guys working from their office. So we've fellas across the entire spectrum of the community, I suppose, in general, and everybody's frustrated, Stephen. We're all like, I think, like, we jumped on Zoom straight after Micheál Martin made his announcement, whatever day it was last week. And like, it's the first time that everybody is smiling and buzzing and is just delighted to know that, you know, while it's still a couple of weeks away, we know that we're going to get there now sooner rather than later. And it just gives you that little bit of focus and bit of energy to know that we're going to be the lucky ones, that we actually get to get out in the field with 30 guys and run around and kick a ball and to do all those things, while other people are still maybe in some way restricted in their movements and different things. So, you know, frustration definitely, but I think the last week we've seen a big turning of the corner in that sense.
We saw this week, obviously, the Dublin footballers got quite a lot of negative attention. Would you have been tempted yourself to gather the Laois lads at some stage?
No, we weren't tempted at all. I don't think so, Stephen. No, like, I mean, fellas were more than happy to do the work that they had to do, and that work was highlighted by maybe our performance against Dublin and seeing, you know, how dominant Dublin are physically in most other teams, and it gave us a nice yardstick to be able to say, well, look, we're not going to get there in 3 or 4 months, but at least we can start to, you know, measure our progress against a team like that physically, so that we gave ourselves targets that we have to try and achieve, and we wanted to use that period as really doing that work. So collective sessions were never on our agenda. They were never something we spoke about. They were never something we were going to do. We wanted to toe the line and do what we were supposed to do, and when we can get back in the field officially, that's when we'll get back in the field.
And when you see the reports that Dublin then caught training the other morning, I know it was only a group of 9 that were caught, let's say, we can say, and it's probably safe to assume that they're probably not the only ones breaking it. Are you sort of thinking there, have we been a bit silly not breaking it, like, or would it frustrate you seeing that?
It is frustrating. Yeah, it is frustrating. There's no question. But you see, I think, like what you just said there, in terms of, you know, maybe they're not the only ones doing it. You see, that's like, my view would be different. Like, my view is that I think most counties are operating like most of the community, and that the vast majority of people are doing everything that they can right. And that we're in a position where we don't want to put players in an unfair position or put pressure on them to have to come training and then they have to go home to, you know, maybe family members who are in a vulnerable position who are still minding themselves until they get vaccinated or something like that. I would suggest that most counties are doing the right thing, and that, you know, obviously Dublin didn't, and they fell below their own standards, I suppose, that they've set for a number of years, and it was disappointing. It was frustrating from our point of view, because I think the GA have done, you know, like, they've done a pretty good job in terms of getting the government support and to be able to see an insight now, like I said, on the 19th is something we're all looking forward to, and I'd hate for anything like that to jeopardize the good for the rest of us, you know. So it was very frustrating. It was very disappointing, and if there is other counties out there, I'm not aware of it, and I'd sure hope that there wasn't a whole pile, you know.
Okay. Have you a preference for what way the season will go ahead, or have you any idea how it's going to play out?
There's only loose talk, really, Stephen, at the moment. I haven't anything, no confirmed stuff, but it looks like we'll get the league with you know, promotion and relegation in the mix for the league, as it was, I think, with the smaller groups, and then a very short break, I'd say, and into a knockout championship, I think, but that's not confirmed, obviously.
Yeah, and would you have a preference for how long of a pre-season you'd get? Like, do you need 6 weeks, or is 3 or 4 weeks enough?
Look, like the only thing with the preseason, Stephen, is like that. Obviously, these fellas have been out of action for a long time, like, and have not been on a field or moving their body the way that a game will demand them to move. So, I think 4 weeks is probably a fair enough window. And the only reason I'd play it tomorrow if they'd let us. But the only reason I'm saying 4 weeks is to make sure that we don't have guys that are breaking down with injuries because they haven't, like you're going to go from doing nothing for a long period of months into playing, really kind of high level games of football when the pace is really high and the ground is going to be hard. So injuries would be the only fear of that. Obviously, I think everybody's going to be at a level in terms of their skill and decision making, which is probably not going to be as high as you'd like. But look, that's just something that we'll have to get over.
There will probably be a case, though. I'm sure lads will be incredibly eager and mad to get going. Like, it'll be a bit different from the O'Byrne Cup, where lads are sort of slowing up. Like, you're going to be getting going in May, and your championship probably in June. It's going to be different, isn't it?
It's going to be brilliant. It's going to be absolutely brilliant. You're going to be playing league games in gorgeous weather. A dry ball, hard ground. Like, we played some games last in the league last year that were. Like, there were snowstorms, like, and we were trying to play a ball. We were playing Cavan with a gale force wind of, whatever it was in front of you. So, no, look, we're just looking forward to it. We can't wait. Obviously, I'm sure everybody's in the same position, but it's just as much as it is as good for us in terms of the football. It's also, I think it's a sign like that we're starting to move out of this thing. That the vaccinations are ramping up a little bit, and we've done our part, and now we're starting to hopefully see the fruits of that.
Tell us a bit, you've been very active, sort of, not on the field, I suppose, or visibly on the field or in terms of preparation, but you've set up your own podcast in the last couple of months and your own coaching podcast. Where did that come from, or what was the idea behind it?
I don't know, really. It kind of came out of nowhere, Stephen, really. I was just... Look, I suppose the backstory was I had I have twin boys that are 10, and they were 10 years. They were coming up on 10 years of age in February, and one of them was in Temple Street for a few weeks the day after he was born. Had a really serious operation, and it looked bleak for a while, and then he turned the corner and came out of it, and everything's been fantastic since. But so I'd always said that I wanted to do a fundraiser or something for them, because I just think Temple Street is and I hope people never have to go in their doors, but when you do, you truly kind of realize the work that they do up there, and how much help they provide for families and all over the country, no matter what county you're from, and it's a joke. Like, I remember the nurses, like, above an ICU had to leave a few minutes, a half an hour before their shift, to go down to move their car, to leave the other crew come in to park their cars, because there was no parking spaces, and they were trying to pay for their own parking outside. And like, it was just crazy, the work that these people are doing inside, and then maybe the lack of funding and different things and facilities that they actually had to deal with, and how much they rely on different fundraising efforts to buy equipment and to buy different things to raise their standards. And look, I was talking about it for a long time in terms of doing something to raise a few funds, and I just thought this was probably as good an opportunity as ever to tap into a few people, some really, really good coaches. I think people got a lot out of some of them, and then to link up with Temple Street and use it as a fundraiser for them, and also benefit coaches all around the place in whatever sport that they might be in.
Yeah,
so that was kind of the general thinking, really.
So you set up, like, you had been doing a bit of you've been a pundit yourself previously, but you were the boss on this one. You were presenting it. It was a different dynamic.
It was a different dynamic. It was, but it was enjoyable. Like, I mean, I've actually just done one there with Barry Solon this week. Now, Barry would have, obviously, he was involved with Laois previously, and he's over in Arsenal football ground, and Barry, like, so you're getting these people like, Jason Sherlock, who was obviously involved with Dublin, and Derek McGrath, and these guys, like some really, I think for coaches, like, I've obviously at the level we're talking about, Stephen, in terms of intercounty, it's all about us winning and performing, and that's the expectation, and how we can do that obviously is really important. But there's a huge level below that in all types of sport, where we're just trying to keep kids playing the game, like whatever game it is, whether it's Gaelic football or rugby or basketball, doesn't really matter. Like, but we've a huge problem in this country with obesity and inactivity and all those kind of things, and I just think coaching has a big part of that. Like, our numbers drop off a cliff in the GAA once people get past 12, 13, 14 years of age. And I think coaching can impact that, and I think we can do a better job of keeping kids involved in sport and physical activity all the way through their lives, really, instead of it being a really early years thing where they fall off. And look, I'm not suggesting that podcast is going to make some kind of earth-shattering difference, but if it could help a couple of coaches pick up a few bits and pieces that might help a few other kids stay in the game a little bit longer, then sure, look, that's great.
It is. Like I've listened to a good few episodes and I've really enjoyed it, but it's great, the sharing of information that someone like Derek McGrath or Jason Sherlock or someone, and Bernard Jackman was one that I really enjoyed as well, that they're so free with what they're telling people. There's no big secrets about anything, is there? Like,
no, but sure, that's the thing. Like when you ask people, most of them are happy enough to share it, like, and to give it out once they know they're getting maybe a little bit back as well, but I think everybody is of that same opinion. Like in obviously inter-county again, like is has to be that's your top of the tree in terms of the GAA, in terms of your focus on winning and performance. That's fair enough. But there's, like I said, everybody is conscious now, like of how can we keep kids playing the game a little bit longer, and everybody understands excuse me, that coaching is a huge part of it. And if you talk to someone like Derek McGrath, who's an incredibly infectious character to just listen to and hear his thoughts on the game, like those kind of conversations can impact people to change what they're doing in terms of their own coaching. And like if you have somebody, like we all know coaches in different clubs, whatever sport it might be, who might run through, over the course of his coaching life, might have hundreds or thousands of kids actually go through his hands. And if you have somebody there who's doing such really good work, that you're empowering the kids and you're giving them a bit of confidence, even if they never go on to play senior football or senior rugby with the club, or never international or inter-county, like, if they're still giving those kids those kind of positive experiences in sport, that's golden. Like, and they're never the people you never read about those people. And it's interesting actually that most of those, Derek McGrath did it, Bernard Jackman did it, you mentioned him, Jason Sherlock did it, they all referenced somebody who kind of coached them when they were like 12 or 14 years of age, and the impact that they had on them, playing sport for as long as they did. Not necessarily that they were the brilliant tacticians or they're the brilliant, X's and O's people, but that they gave them some kind of a love for the game that made them want to stay involved, And
Bernard Jackman had a great story of the guy he wrote a letter to, who coached him at under 14 or something, and it meant the world to your man in reverse. Like, and he was the one who had the huge influence on Bernard Jackman in the first place. But one thing, like, I found, good to hear is that, like, you hear someone like Jason Sherlock saying that the most important thing is putting the person first, and then everything else follows after that, because people can lose the run of themselves. They're over a team and it's all about the game and the skills and the various things. But if, as Jason Sherlock was saying, you put the person first, it's great. But the other great thing to hear is every single one of them are saying the importance of fun and how much importance fun is. And I'm sure that's the same if you're coaching the Kerins O'Rahilly's under 10s, or if you're coaching the Laois seniors. The fun is so important.
Yeah, and we lose sight of it. Like, it has to be an enjoyable pursuit. Like, there's no like senior intercounty or whatever age group you're talking about. It has to, like, enjoyment has to be a part of it. Now that gets tweaked a little bit in terms of you start to enjoy the good performance and you start to enjoy different aspects of it. Or below, we're about having fun and making sure that our numbers keep coming back in the door, and how we do that. And like the beauty, I suppose, of listening to some of the lads is that, like, it's they talk about how you create that kind of environment in training, that it's not specifically what drills you do or what games you do, it's how you interact with the kids or the adults, and how you talk to them, how they talk to you, and the kind of the way you communicate and the way you deal with those people. And look, I think coaching is going that kind of a way, Stephen, especially for underage stuff. Like, that there's an appreciation now that, if you're not the greatest tactician, you can still be an incredibly impactful coach on a child's life, and again, give them that long-term kind of sustainable love of sport and physical activity, that ultimately, like, you're not going to remember if you won an under 13 county championship 20 years ago, but if you're still out running and you're still out walking, you're playing indoor soccer, or you're playing your tag rugby, or you're doing whatever, it's going to be a good thing for you for the rest of your life.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer the coaching side or the managing side of it? They're two very different
parts, they are very different. Yeah, they're very different. The coaching is probably where it's at. Like, the coaching is the really enjoyable kind of part of it, where you're really working on stuff, and then you get to see it maybe improve or whatever. That's where it is. But I think you can, you can do both. Like, you can definitely do both. The management is really all the other stuff. Like, it's all the stuff away from the field, really. And that's probably less. Enjoyable, I suppose, in one sense, and then other parts of it are fine and are great experiences as well, But definitely the coaching is the fun part. Like, when you're on the field.
Of course, you're from a basketball. You have a strong basketball background, so basketball is probably ahead of the GAA and Gaelic football in terms of coaching. So that's, I'm sure, feeding into your perspective as well.
Yeah, the basketball would be it's probably more coach heavy. Like, where there's a lot of prescription in the basketball. There's a lot of fellas telling you what to do all the time. Whereas I think that's a part of it. Like, whereas now the coaching is going the other way, where there should be probably less prescription and less telling fellas what to do, and more of that idea of trying to get them to figure it out for themselves. So you're putting them in positions where they're trying to come up with the answers themselves. That's the kind of more powerful way to do it now, I suppose, really.
And in terms of podcasting, that have you enjoyed sort of the production side of it and the editing side of it, or have you? No.
No, it's fine. Like, I was getting a hand, I suppose, at the start. I got a hand, like, to figure out how to do it, really. Sure, I didn't clue, really, and then I figured it out, really, just through trial and error, and now, sure, I recorded, I suppose, I edited and I put it out myself, and it's all a one man band for another couple of weeks, though. And
that's what I was going to ask. Are you going to continue it, or what's the story?
No. I mean, the idea, I didn't think I'd be going this long, to be honest, but the idea was just to do it for until the season started, obviously, and then once we get underway, I'll be wrapping it up, and I'll bring the fundraiser to a close. So, and
I get you to do a live show up here sometime or something.
Yeah, sure, no bother. No bother.
Yeah, look, Mike, you've been very good with your time. I suppose you're looking forward. Just obviously, Joe Mallons are good supporters of both ourselves in Laois Today and Laois Senior Football Manager. You're looking forward to being up and down the road.
I am. I collected my 211 from Anthony and the lads, last week or the week before, maybe. So, it's sitting outside now. It hasn't gone anywhere. So I'm looking forward to getting up and down the road again. It'll be great in another couple of weeks.
Finally, I suppose we'll keep it away for Laois just at the moment, but we are looking forward to obviously seeing them back in action. Underage teams and everything, they're going to be allowed back maybe the week after inter-county teams. What one bit of advice would you give to coaches that are raring to get going now? The weather is good, the year is going to stretch out in front of us. Is there any one most important thing people should keep in mind?
Well, I was actually just doing a thing with a club last night, with my own club, just with a bunch of coaches, and I was saying, like, for our first couple of weeks back, there should be nothing happening except just playing games with the kids, like small-sided games that they show up and you can play your World Cup, your pick your 4 teams or your 6 teams, whatever kids you have, and let them play. Like my own too, I asked my own kids to write down what were they looking forward to about going back training, and the first thing they wrote down was play games. Like, kids are telling us they want to play games, and yet they'll come up to training and we want to do a warm-up and do drills and do something else before we play. Let's play games with the kids. They've missed it for long enough, so put them into teams and let's get them playing for a while.
What was it on? It might have been on, I'm not sure whether it was on your podcast or someone else's, but one of the coaches made the point, the first thing you should do is, rather than warm up, straight into a game, as you say, like, Yeah.
And sure, like, people are afraid to do it because you have to do your warm up and you have to do your thing. But sure, look, stick them into a game. You can be doing a few drills after if you need to, but that's what they want. Like, it's the novelty of kids telling you they want to play a game and us saying we'll do it afterwards. But no, why not just listen to them and stick them straight into a game,
Mike, you've been very good with your time. I look forward to seeing Laois back in action whenever we get confirmation of details, and we look forward to sort of meeting you in that after the games. Mike Quirke, Laois Senior Football Manager and Brand Ambassador for Joe Mallon Motors. Thanks very much for your time.